Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Zenitsu, and you're listening to the Digi Talks podcast, the show that covers various topics from news to meta developments and everything in between for the fine folks who love the Digimon trading card game. Just as a quick reminder, I do try to stream this live over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, but fear not because it's always uploaded as a YouTube video under the channel of Zenitsu, as well as being on various podcasting platforms like Spotify for your viewing and listening pleasure. So please feel free to do that whole social media doobly-doo thing and leave that rating, like, follow, subscribe, review, whatever, depending on the platform that you're listening on. It really does help support the podcast, or at least that's what we like to think. So today I am back with Jay Stewart, and we are going to be trying to be a little bit more uplifting today and talking about some of our favorite decks that we've played in the TCG. Because, we've been playing the game for quite a while. There's been quite a lot of decks. So obviously we had to have had some favorite. So I figured this would be a good opportunity to, talk about that a little bit. But before we get into the main topic, we watched anime. So the new the new Beat Break episodes came out. So last time we talked about episode 4 with the biker and Machmon. And then we got 5 and 6 that came out recently, which was like a two-parter. And it was about Pandamon. So what did you think about the episodes, Jay Stewart? I'm going to talk to them like as if they're one because it's like a little two-parter.
Yeah, so I thought episode 5 at first, it was like gonna kind of be doing the typical episode, but the way they ended episode 5, I thought, oh crap, like this is starting to get good. Like, I don't think we've seen an ultimate level Digimon this early into the anime, and usually when they introduce the ultimate level Digimon, they're about ready to introduce like the the Digimon and his partner finally being able to do the ultimate level. So I kind of got to take it back. Like, this is a very big, high boss that they're fighting against. And just even kind of like...
Yeah, no, so Ostamon being the antagonist Digimon, I thought was kind of cool. What they were trying to set up in this episode, it really felt like was like Mafia versus Yakuza. That's kind of the vibes that I got because the old man, which was like the person taking care of Pandamon, he kind of was like a Yakuza boss in a sense. Like, he was obviously running the town that the main character was staying at, but he had a very Yakuza vibe. And then the gangsters that were trying to basically run them out of the town felt very mafioso. And like the Digimon kind of represented that because they gave like Pandamon this jacket. So that way he looked more in line with a Yakuza type thing. So I thought that was kind of a funny allegory.
Yeah, I did like how they were kind of doing that whole the tea ceremony, and like how this was the other thing too, is like Pandamon's not the old man's Digimon whatsoever. And I just thought it was really crazy to think about, because don't they normally go at, like, they kind of talk about how the what do they call them?
The little eggs.
Huh?
The little
no,
eggs.
The group that goes around capturing
Glowing Dawn.
That are
Glowing Dawn.
Glowing Dawn, like, yeah. So Glowing Dawn and whatever, like everyone else, like, what do they call them? It's not their Pacific group. It's like just in general, like hunters or coders. They call them something. But either way, though, it's just like, it was interesting because like Panamon's like not the old man's Digimon, and this Digimon is literally just living in this city trying to help protect it. And normally they go after Digimon like that. So it was just kind of interesting to see that this one was left alone. And it also kind of just made me wonder, where is his tamer then, if that's the case?
Those are good points, because it feels like Digimon that have tamers, they're able to absorb the beats, obviously, through the little, like, egg Digivice type thing. And Pandamon definitely was a confirmed wild Digimon, in a sense. where they were already talking about, like, yes, they all come from somebody's egg, but I don't exactly know what happens, like how Digimon become rogue, because we haven't really like seen a birthed rogue Digimon in a sense. So I think that's kind of interesting. But yeah, the old man that was running the town was giving Pandamon his beat, um, through like the way wild Digimon do it, where it's just like a bite and he's feeding off of it. So it was kind of funny and cute. Where in episode 6, he just like takes off his jacket. He's just this absolutely ripped old man. And he's just like, all right, time to feed. And then he just puts his, like, Pandamon just like puts his hand in his mouth in like the cutest way possible. And I'm like, what? This is so goofy.
Yeah, and
Um,
then like even just the dark element that they were trying to go over in like episode 6, with this, it was like the theme was really good. It was actually talking about Digimon dying example, and it was interesting how I don't care. Do we care for spoilers or no?
Maybe light spoilers. Like, I mean, it's Digimon. It's all episodic and nothing so far means anything. So I don't necessarily think that people need a big like spoiler disclaimer. But if just, I guess, spoiler disclaimer here. Don't know when the timestamp is gonna be for not spoilers, but just skip to wherever you feel like for non
Like 2
spoilers.
chance probably.
Yeah. So you could go into spoilers.
Yeah, so obviously Pandamon like used all of his beat in him to try to save everyone because it was an ultimate level Digimon. He had to. And the way Gekomon was able to infuse him with his beat in order to save him from dying is like I don't think anybody knew that was possible. So it's like what is like this beat that Gekomon gets from this Tomo, I think that's his name.
Yeah,
It's
I
like
think
it just
so.
kind of explored more into it that there's something unique, more unique about his beat than we think.
Well, so like in previous episodes, they were alluding to part of the reason why he hates AI is because he makes it all go crazy because of his beat. So maybe he like has this like overload type thing where he just overstimulates the AI to bug out. So like Gekomon sharing the beat felt kind of normal because like that's just a trope type thing where it's just like, oh, here, have some of my energy, I just have so much. And then usually there's this sub trope that goes with it where it's just like, oh, to beat this thing that's absorbing the energy, just give it more. So it kind of felt like it was playing off of that a little bit. It could be like a bond thing where like maybe Digimon can have bonds with each other because Gekomon kind of was just like being Pandamon's little brother in a sense. And he's just like, brother, we share everything 50-50, remember? And it was kind of cute seeing like a brother dynamic. I kind of hope that they bring Pandamon back more often. So that way he doesn't just feel like a one and done type character. Because Digimon shows are kind of notorious for sometimes doing that. But I'm hoping they make a little bit of a bigger deal out of it than, and he becomes a reoccurring character because of the bond that they had.
Yeah, for sure. But what did kind of honestly surprise me was I really thought since the ultimate level Digimon was there, I thought somebody was going to unlock like a champion level to try to help combat that. I really thought that for a second.
Well, I mean, you
'Cause I
had
thought
Wolvermon.
you had Wolvermon, yes. But it just like I thought one of the other ones because it just looks like Wolvermon's not been doing anything as a champion so far.
No, and I totally didn't realize, I'm blanking on his name, but the leader of Glowing Dawn, his Digimon is actually an ultimate.
Are you serious?
Yeah, that's why he's like so strong, is because his Digimon is like actually an ultimate. So we've been seeing an ultimate the whole time. But yeah.
What the heck does the rookie look like then? Because I'm assuming that cat thing is the champion level.
Yeah, that's his champion level.
Or is it the rookie stage in that because we never see him digivolve on screen.
No, but we currently don't know how they're going to be handling like ultimates yet in terms of like the protagonist, where it's just like, are they going to do a whole skipped evolution, like with Ghost Games, where he just now can go into Kana Weissmon. Same thing with all of the others, where it's just like they just skip all of the evolutions. They go through some of the animations in some of the shows, but like sometimes they just don't, and they just go right to the ultimate, or even Mega. So I don't know what kind of approach that they're gonna do with that, but it feels like from a game perspective, like if I had to start breaking down mechanics inside of Beat Break, it really feels like Beat would be the only mechanic, and I don't exactly know what that would translate into. They could easily do like a option, like a one cost option that has the link ability, and it literally could just be called Beat, or and then they just give it like a sub trait or whatever that kind of fits with the whole Beat Break thing. Um, and then maybe that allows you to like reduce the cost of your Digivolutions as long as it's linked or something. I don't know. Or they could just play around with it kind of similarly to how the new Sukuyamon deck added links to options. So I don't know. That's the only thing I could like glean from so far based on the little information that we have on Beat Break as far as like what could translate into a mechanic. But I've been enjoying it so far. I'm curious to see what is going to happen next. It still feels like we're in Monster of the Week territory, and we're probably going to be that way for a hot minute. My brother's getting a little annoyed that they're just like, come on, show Gekkomon's evolution. It's like episode 7 by now. Like, he should be able to go champion. So, I don't know exactly.
To be fair, I think Digimon Tamers, I think Guilmon did digivolve into his champion level at this point. I could be wrong on that. I don't remember for sure. I know for a fact Terriermon did, but I don't. I want to be confident about the Guilmon.
Well, so like the power scaling of the show is like all over the place because they will reference, and they referenced in this episode, oh no, that is an ultimate level Digimon. Our attacks are not going to be very effective against it. So like obviously the stages do matter, but then you see like Wolvermon just get their ass beat, and it's just like, oh, I guess this is just a weak champion. And then you see Gekkomon, where it's just like, okay, he's actually just going toe-to-toe with champions because of the protagonist's beat giving him some kind of, like, absurd power boost that's not evolving him. So, I don't know. The power scaling's kind of wonky, but it's Digimon. I'm not expecting it to be very cut and dry at times. So, but I'm still enjoying the show. Like I said, my hot prediction is around episode 10. We'll probably see it. And then the story will actually start kicking into high gear because as far as what Glowing Dawn was doing in these episodes, literally was just like debating what kind of bounty they wanted to go on while the protagonist was off on his little side adventure. And then they just so happened to align, like in terms of their goals, where it's just like, oh yeah, this guy had a bounty on him and we're hunting him. Cool. That's convenient. In Data Squad, Marcus reached the champion level in episode 2. Yeah, like usually they give the champions like to the protagonist characters like really quickly. Because I know like Adventures, literally like the 3rd episode he had it. Because the first like episode or 2 was them getting into the digital world, and then they faced off against Kawagamon.
Yeah, Kawagamon, and they digivolved into the rookie stage. They fall off. They go to the beach, find the phones, run into Shellmon, and that's when Agumon goes into Greymon the first time.
Yeah, so like literally by episode 3, in the original show that they had their champions. I know Flamedramon came pretty quickly, so like we should be seeing Gekkomon's evolution soon. But considering the set for Beat Break isn't coming out until May, like we've got plenty of time, or like Bandai's got plenty of time on their hands to just sit on this. Which is kind of interesting to think about. Because I know, like, they're trying to do this whole, like, multimedia thing, which they're not really used to, of just having their medias come out at the same time. I think maybe the year or 2 years that Liberator's been going on, it's been like they've been training themselves to try to do it. I might be just reading too much into this and giving Bandai too much credit, but I would like to think the release schedule and timing of Liberators has helped the planning of Beat Break, so that way when the set comes out, it's going to coincide with where we currently are in the anime. And then they're going to obviously have another set that's going to wrap things up, and then that should be the set to finish Beat Break, because Beat Break is going to be going on for a full year. So that's why I think like Liberator is also going to be kind of ending, because it feels like we're at like their final arc. Obviously they could continue it, and obviously there's the mobile adaptation of Liberator, but it feels like the big overarching picture of Liberator is coming to a close in preparation for Beat Break. But again, that could just be me reading way too much into it.
I mean, I don't put it past it, because I mean, I haven't been able to keep up with Beat Break or Liberator, unfortunately. But it does kind of, because last I knew is like Cool Boy or Cool Guy, whatever he's called, I guess, in the thing. But from what I remember, he got sucked into the other world, so that's when the team was going to try to find him, and then the whole contest got announced.
Yeah, I mean,
But
Liberator's been moving incredibly slow, which is what made me like drop it really quickly, was because of how slow it was moving. I know in the web novel, they don't even play the Digimon TCG very much. Like literally one of the characters was just punching, like he literally had just a punching match with Digimon. There was no actual card game to be played while they're finding Cool Boy. And then the actual webcomic is when, they're actually doing some fights. And we already got confirmation that they're going to be getting emblems. I doubt that the characters in the novels are going to be getting level 7s. But I mean, the emblems are just such broken cards, because they just released the BT24 spoiler, the very first one being the emblem for Medusamon. So everyone start buying Medusamon stuff, because they're going to be releasing that. There's going to be some hype on it. We don't know if it's going to be very good or not, because the emblem literally is like all of the other emblems. So it's just like when the tamer suspends, Digivolve and have that Digivolution cost be reduced by 3, and then play the Tamer or the Rookie as the main ability. So it's just like, okay, this is just a nothing burger of a card. That's going to be incredibly good. In terms of a spoiler, it's a nothing burger. It's like, yeah, we already knew it. And then they didn't even finish the weird part about that spoiler was they didn't even finish the starter deck. So we're not going to go too deep into the starter decks, as they're still kind of spoiling some of the cards. Some of them, like some of the extra cards, were pretty hype though. I'm super excited for the Dugach, personally, but that's because I'm a secret app lover, and I think that Dugach basically giving you a free link into time means that you're able to kind of just go faster. And maybe this is what you need to not run the Charismon stuff. So you're just going to be running like Dugach time, and then fully commit to the globe play. So
yeah, unfortunately, I can't give much feedback about the whole links. I mean, to me, it just links are not definitely links to me are just not up my alley. They're not my playstyle. I'll be talking about more of my kind of playstyle here in a little bit, though, when we get to that.
yeah, I mean, it's an advanced deck. It's just gonna do some things. And so like it has some pretty strong cards in it already. The big thing is options have the link mechanic now too. So a lot of people are looking at that as like big speculation to what that's going to mean in the future. Cuz I think the link mechanic is a really good mechanic, and unfortunately what's holding Appmon back is app fuse, not linking. I think like if anything, Appmon would be better if it didn't have App Fuse, to be honest. Like, if they just forgot App Fuse was a mechanic, then I think Appmon would be better. Or just make their Digivolution costs 3. Like, that's realistically what they should have done. But I digress. And as far as being correct on things, in terms of like balance, I do want to kind of preface this where I made a video talking about how Bandai should be releasing more frequent bans and restriction updates. Yes, I had a wish list of cards that I would like to get banned, but I felt like a lot of people took the wrong message away from it. So I made a huge, big community post about it, linked the video and everything. And essentially the big takeaway that I wanted to kind of like explain, in case anyone who's just a podcast listener didn't know, yes, I make YouTube content. Yes, that was a big video, and yes, there was a lot of hate and controversy around it, sparked by yours truly, because my opinions are way ahead of the curve and people don't like that. So the point of the video was the fact that I was trying to say we need to have more frequent ban and restriction updates. That was literally the whole point. Whether it's a single card coming on or off the ban restriction list, I could not care. Just the fact that we would have more updates to balance the game would make the game better. I'm curious to think, like, what are your thoughts about that type of a topic?
Oh, honestly, to me, I think it definitely is kind of. I'm in agreement that maybe perhaps that with Bandai's track record, I shouldn't say track record. Based on current events, let's take for example this last ban restriction list. They were trying to hit the Growl package because people were abusing it, so they hit every other card besides Growl X. But we still see Growl X package being used. So it's like, well, so what do? Now we're sitting around waiting for Worlds to happen before they finally hit it again. Damage is already done, folks. Growl X is already here.
Right, and
like,
I was watching a lot of like Magic content. Not necessarily because I'm looking to get back into Magic, but I look at a lot of other TCG content because there's a lot of parallels that could be drawn between one game and another. Even though like the games are different, the issues are the exact same between all of the games. And that's the part that like really has me interested. Not again specifically in Magic, but just how all of the card games are basically reaching the same conclusions. And it's wild. Like, it's actually wild. So, like, if anyone's unfamiliar with Magic, they just had a ban and restriction update. They're one ban and restriction update a year. And in that ban and restriction update, they said two things. One, it took them way too long to be able to react and respond to a problem that was actually ruining and killing the format. The format in question was standard. And two, it's the fact that they actually are having a hard time balancing their game with 7 sets coming out in a single year. So, granted, yes, Magic produces way more cards than Digimon, but the fact that they have 7 sets a year, we have 7 sets a year, they banned cards literally once, probably twice a year because of an emergency ban restriction. They're really trying not to. But the fact that they said we need to ban stuff more so that way problems like Vivi don't continue to happen and ruin the game for everyone. That resonated with me because that's the biggest company admitting that they need to have more bans and restrictions. And then as far as the frequency, I had an image. I think it looked like they were trying to do one every, at least bare minimum every quarter, which is, again, something I recommended. Magic. Okay, so their ban and restriction, their tentative target ban and restrictions, so they just had one in November. Their next one's in February. The one after that is pretty much like March, April. Then they have one in May, they have one in June, they have one in August, they have one in October, and one in December. So they're looking basically to hit something every 2 months. Which, do I think that's a little aggressive? Probably. But Magic is a way bigger game with way more cards. And I think, like, if Digimon actually cared about its competitive scene, which we already know they don't, which is unfortunate, then once a quarter update, like every BT set, is very, very reasonable and valid because of how much harder it is to balance the game with 7 sets coming out a year. Like, it's very obvious with just like Hoodie Loop and all of the weird, awkward interactions that are forming from unintended synergies because you have a card, like an old card interacting with a new card, even though the new card's what's breaking the game, because they're trying to break the game so that way it sells. Otherwise, if it doesn't, then it doesn't sell. And again, that's why I think like the positives of having multiple banner restrictions outweigh the negatives. Because the only real negative to it is like, oh, you're going to hit consumer like trust and confidence. That's the worst case scenario is like, oh, I bought into Hoodie Loop and it was egregiously broken and made the game unfun for 3 months and then they fixed the game. Boo-hoo? Like, I'm not saying they're going to be banning Hoodie specifically, or I want them to ban Hoodie specifically. I'm just using that as an example. It's just like, oh, yeah, they depowered your tier 1 deck. And we should care why. It's still playable. Like, Bandai's been really good for the most part about what they ban and restrict. For the most part, obviously they do have a couple of misses. But for the most part, their batting average in terms of like, this is the card hit to hit, has actually been pretty good. So I have enough trust and confidence that they would hit the right cards to make decks playable, but depowered. Yeah, and then we also have to remember that Dragon Ball Super Masters, another Bandai game, also literally adopted this philosophy where every single like main set they ban and restrict cards because that game just got so egregiously powerful. So I think like Digimon's in that same type of camp where I feel like we just need one more often.
Yeah, and you're also not saying that, oh, after the very, like, literally the next set, they're going to hit cards specifically from that next set. It doesn't necessarily mean that. We probably want the decks to at least have their moment in the sun for a bit, but we don't want them to have their moments in the sun forever to where it makes all the other sets in the future lackluster. Like, take, for example, Kingdra Seal. That was introduced in what? Well, the new cards that powered it up was like BT20. We're going into BT23, and Kingdra Seal is still considered a very good deck to be playing, even after the ban restriction list.
Yeah. So, like, Bandai knows what's coming down the pipeline, so they know what they should consider hitting. That's, like, all the way back in, like, BT6 time. That's why Jessamon got hit, is because they knew a starter deck for Jessamon was going to be coming out, and it was going to make that starter deck a little bit problematic if Jessamon was allowed to continue the way it was. Granted, that was more for the Japanese side of things. And honestly, I think, like, again, this helps reduce the APOC situation because I feel like Apocalypse was such a damaging card to the entire game as a whole, and their handling around that was so poor. That's partially what led to unification, to be honest, was because of that. And
well, think of how much damaging it would have been after that very first ban restriction list of trying to hit cards around Apocalypse, and it didn't do anything. And we were like, oh, well, wait another 6 months, and Apocalypse is just out for 6 months. You know how damaging that would have been for the game?
I mean, that's literally what Japan went through, for the most part. Like, literally.
Yeah,
and
like,
Japan hated it.
Yeah, now that we're unified, we don't want to be dealing with that situation. Like, JP's already been through it. I don't think anybody here wants to deal with that kind of situation. I'm not saying there's any cards like Apocalypse out right now, but who's to say that they're not going to make a whoopsie daisy and make a mistake of printing a card like it?
Right, because they just completely forgot about how things interact with one another. Just like how they totally forgot how DNA worked, because apparently any CS deck using any kind of DNA is incredibly broken. Like, so we have Hoodie obviously abusing DNAs, and we have Mastimon because Hoodie as a deck is using the BT22 rookies to de-digivolve themselves from a DNA into the level 4, and then the level 4 is going to swing, play out the Tamer. Tamer is going to play out a Digimon, and then they have 2 Digimon to DNA right away. Mastimon also is doing something very similar, where you do it on the level 5s instead of the level 4s, where you DNA your 2 level 5s into a level 6. Your level 6 plays out another level 5. Then you use the BT22 rookies to de-digivolve yourself to go back into another level 5 to then DNA and do the loop all over again. So, like, it's just wild that they forgot how DNAs work. And that's the type of stuff that, like, okay, obviously something here is not very good or healthy, so having more frequent bans and restrictions allows them to play around with things a little bit more often to actually balance the game instead of just let it be broken and then hope the players are able to adapt out of it. And sometimes the adapting out of it is not very fun or engaging if how the deck is playing and what it's doing isn't fun to play against. And that's like my big takeaway for like trying to support the idea of why we should have more frequent bans and restrictions, and think like, hey, maybe they want the game to be power spiked, and now maybe things are allowed to come off. So it's just like, hey, if we're killing people on turn 2 with Jessamon, sure, let us have cross 4 back. Like, a 1-mana rusher that's repeatable in this day and age is like, yeah, that's just how the game is played. Like, is there actually a harm in that? And I'm not going to try to get too into the weeds of that, but that's something that they could play with, is like how they want their game to be played and what could they reasonably think comes off. Because, again, relating it back to Magic the Gathering's last ban restriction list, they unbanned for their Pauper format a card called High Tide. It's a very famous card. So they unbanned that for Pauper, and then they just banned it back again. So it's like, Bandai could obviously take the same approach, where it's just like, okay, we'll let you have your toy for 3 months, check back in, see how that toy is doing. If it fits within the format, that's great. If it doesn't, we'll just remove it again. So, like, sure, that's going to make the secondary market go crazy, but, like, Digimon secondary market's already not super great as is. So, like, who cares if, like, a 5-cent card spikes to $1 or $2? Like, I don't necessarily think it's that big of a deal. And then the other, like, benefit is, like you were alluding to, it lets sets breathe, because, hey, Gallantmon's been powerful for a year. Hit something from Gallantmon. Let other things be playable. Like, and if anything, that's depowering the game, not increasing the power, because we've seen, what was it? BT21 kind of flopped. BT22 did just average or below average. EX9 and EX10 both flopped because all those sets weren't trying to power spike the game, and they were only introducing maybe one new deck into the format. So, like, the majority of the set was just piss poor. Whereas if they banned and restricted things a little bit more proactively, maybe those sets would have done better.
Yeah, because the only thing I'm afraid of is we've seen what happens when we haven't bought any sets. Like, I'm trying to think, what was it? Like, BT15, we didn't buy any of its sets. And then when it came, there was like an EX set after that. EX7, we didn't buy into that either. But here comes BT16 that everybody wanted. But what happened? Stores didn't order it because they saw there was a decrease in people buying sets. So they're like, why should I even bother buying this next set if it's not going to be, if players aren't going to buy it? And it turned out players did want it. Like, that's what I'm afraid might be that could potentially happen, is stores might start decreasing their sales of the product, and then when we really need the product, it's going to be the same situation as we faced with BT16.
That one's a little bit different because that was just a perfect storm of awful. based on the timeline of events. But the sentiment is still very true. Like, hey, this set came out, it tanked. Why am I investing in more sets if they're not going to be selling well because Bandai's not updating their metagame to allow anything in the new set outside of one specific deck to be playable? Like, that's a very real and true sentiment. Because my store owner like came up to me and he asked like in when EX9 was coming out, "Hey, I have boxes of EX9. Who wants?" Everyone said, "Ha, no." And he's just like, "Cool. We're not ordering as much Digimon anymore. Thanks everyone." Like you said, that's a very real thing. And yes, they could do emergency bans and restrictions for when they really, really mess up, but I think those are for more special case uses. And if they just update their game more on a more trackable schedule, I think the game would be healthy for that. So that's the big takeaway for that, is the fact that like other games are thinking about doing more bans and restrictions because it's making their games better. And not to like to put a wrap on this before we go into decks that we actually like and play. Like you look at a lot of other live service games and they do a crap ton of updates again because it makes their game better. So you look at a game like, I'll just pick one out of my hat. Yes, this is going to be digital, but Marvel Snap. Marvel Snap has one of the biggest and most diverse metagames out of any live service card game or out of any card game period. And the reason for that is because they constantly are balancing and updating their game to make it better. Yes, they have the luxury of it being a digital game, so they could do those more frequently, but that's why I think, like, at least bare minimum, a couple more bans and restriction updates to make the game better is only going to make the game better. Like, it's not going to make the game worse, especially if they don't want to power spike every set, which they shouldn't be doing in the first place. So that's kind of my whole take and spiel. So I guess we could read this Medusamon, because we did get a new Medusamon spoiled.
Yeah, so...
Oh, we got a lot of information. Holy crap. We got the box art for Time Strangers, and... Is that, what, a sleeve? Yeah. We got Owen sleeves.
Where are you seeing this? Because I'm looking at my Discord and...
news and spoilers under my Digimon channel, like specifically for Digimon. So if you go to my server, you go to the Digimon tab, and then you go to news and spoilers. Miracle Maker, interesting. That's the quick art. And then we have the Medusamon. So there's the Medusamon. I'll read her because you're not going to be able to read her for any video watchers. Boop, 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 boop. News and spoilers. Medusamon. So she's following the trend where a lot of the previous ones were 4-cost evolutions with 12k. She's 3-cost with 3k. Raid, Progress, and Piercing. So Raid and Piercing's already pretty good, and then Progress basically makes her immune to pretty much everything while she's attacking. So you can't interact with her. And then she's going to kill your thing and deal damage. And then when this Digimon deletes one of the opponent's Digimon, one of your opponent's lowest... When Digivolving, you get to delete your opponent's lowest DP Digimon, and then return 2 cards from their trash, to the bottom of the deck to play 2 Petrophy tokens. And then after this Digimon... and then after... This Digimon gets plus 2,000 DP for each card... for each of your opponent's Digimon until the turn ends. Ooh, that's really good. Okay. So she basically is going to give herself plus 4,000 by default. Yeah, it's plus 4,000 by default, because if they don't have a Digimon, then... Oh, that's only when Digivolving. Oh, no, that's a your turn ability. No. That's part of the Petrophy tokens. Yeah, so it's just when you digivolve up into her, she's going to be getting bare minimum plus 4,000 DP, usually plus 6,000 DP. And not terrible. It's not fantastic, but it's not terrible.
I mean, it's trash based interaction, so
Yeah, that's the more important part to me is like, hey, I get to specifically pick cards out of your trash to return them to your deck. I wish this was like when digivolving when attacking once per turn. I think that would make the card significantly better. I mean, then again, at that point, you're just going to be flooding the whole field with Petrophy tokens, so maybe they would have to reduce the Petrophy token instead of 2 to 1.
I mean, they could have also worded to where it could be like a when digivolving, when attacking. You could do the whole sending cards from opponent's trash to the bottom of the deck and only make the petrified tokens only when digivolve.
Yeah, there's ways to
That way you're not-
separate it. Like when digivolving, do that whole thing, and then when attacking, gain the DP buff for each Digimon on the opponent's field. I don't hate that idea. Either way, it's an okay card. Obviously the main thing is what's the level 7 gonna do. That's the thing that we care about the most, because as we're seeing with these like new wave Liberator decks, the level 7's the only thing that actually matters. And unfortunately for every other Liberator deck so far, Magnetic is like leaps and bounds better than everything else, like by a very, very large margin. So,
Yeah.
all right. That will lead us into our favorite decks and playstyles. Because we want to end on a more positive note. Because as much as we are critical on the game, we're still players and we still want to have fun. So, Jay Stewart, what is your favorite deck and or favorite playstyle?
Yeah, so two things might be very conflicts, I guess, so to say. But this is just how I personally feel. So, gameplay wise, my honest opinion, I think my favorite was BT8 Black War. The reason why was just because at the time we needed ways to answer Tamers, and Black War Greymon at the time was the only way to do it, and it kind of used both the colors I loved of. Well, it used black at the time, but I also got to use the powerful red Agumon engine as well, and I could be really aggressive with it. It was just like, to me, I really enjoyed the play style of it, because I was even using tech like Geo Greymon, the security one, where if it's checked, you get to play it out from the starter deck 6. As just like kind of a weird niche tech. I was even fusing a Chimeramon or Chimeramon into it as well to just do some shenanigans with the tech. Like it's like just I had a fun time with it, and I even used the EX1 War Greymon too, just to have the Blitz effect too as well. So like I had aggression on one side of the deck, but I also had the control aspect of it. That was just how I liked playing it. And my favorite all-time deck, I mean, my profile picture just obviously hint what it is, but my favorite all-time deck was BT9 Alphamon. Now, I know people are going to hate me for it, but look, hear me out, okay? I don't think BT9 Alphamon is as bad as what we see today, in all honesty. Alphamon was one of the decks I didn't like playing against was Setcon, and Alphamon was able to help me solve my problem of decks I hated with it. So, like, just being able to be aggressive against it, like, use Kongu to stop my opponent from putting cards back into their security. And to me, I just had fun playing Alphamon. I really did. Yeah, was it a sit-back deck and kind of build up in the back? Yes. But it was kind of a big payoff because it was a lot of investing I had to put into the deck to get a big payout like that.
I mean, Alphamon kind of is like what modern Digimon essentially is still. Just it was the first to really do it. And I think that's kind of just a funny and interesting dynamic, because it's just like, oh, you were using Memory Boost plus Cool Boy to achieve what we are basically doing right now with just running Memory Boost and Scramble. So like Alphamon, I think was like way ahead of his time, and obviously that made him very very good. So much so that a lot of people did not enjoy it, but I thought it was fine. Like, did I enjoy it at the time per se? Not necessarily, but then again, I also was a very filthy Garurumon X player, so I really didn't have room to be talking. Because I was basically doing almost the same type of thing, except I had my promo that allowed me to OTK. So,
You
yeah.
didn't need to worry about playing out Cool Boy if you didn't have it on the field.
Well, no. So like the deck still had Cool Boy. Because we did go from base to X quite a lot, because our main combo was swing with promo, unsuspend, swing again, digivolve into Were-Guru X, unsuspend, digivolve from there into a Melga, swing with Melga, digivolve into Melga X, unsuspend, swing again. Except by the time we digivolved and swung with the Melga, it usually had security attack +1. So we were swinging, that was what, already 3, 4, 5 checks, like, very easily. So, like, it was just another OTK deck. Like, honestly, I think the game really started to become, like, super combo OTK focused, like, around that time. Like, honestly, BT9 probably was the big turning point for the game to define how we're currently playing the game. And then BT14 power spiked the entire game. Well, it's not necessarily 100% BT14's fault. Japan technically had the training cards before we did. We got them in BT14. So that's just my own personal association. But then the training cards came out, and then that was like the final straw in terms of how fast decks need to be. In terms of A, consistency, and B, level of interaction. But again, I am not one to talk because I 100% was a metaslave. I will admit that. I usually played blue decks, and whatever was the best blue OTK deck was what I played, because I didn't find the other OTKs to be very enjoyable. Could I have played Grandis in BT12? Sure. Did I want to play Grandis in BT12? No. Was it an OTK deck? Yes. But what did I choose to play instead? I chose to play I think I was still on Melga. No, we were just starting to get into I think I was on Cross Hearts in that format. I'd have to go back and look, but like Cross Hearts was really good. And that was really fun. And then Melga was still an OTK deck. I don't remember what I brought that year. Maybe it was Red Hybrids? No. It definitely was not Red Hybrids. Red Hybrids was next year. But anyway, I digress. So the two playstyles that I generally gravitate to, if anyone like actually wants to like verify, they can. My channel's just full of it. I like to play aggressive style decks. Those are generally my favorites. Not necessarily OTK decks. I'll play OTK decks because they're the best things to play, but they're not the things that I enjoy playing the most. I just like good old-fashioned beating the crap out of my opponent in the most aggressive way possible. So decks like Cross Hearts spoke to me. Decks like Adventures spoke to me. Decks like Red Hybrids and Blue Hybrids spoke to me. Like, I just like good, aggressive strategies. I played Rookie Rush all the way back in BT5. That's how I got my Ulforce trophy card. So, like, that's the type of playstyle I'll play. But I still enjoy the OCK combo decks every now and then, just because that's unfortunately how we have to play Digimon now. So, like, kind of forcing myself to like that, but there's some really fun ones just because of the non-linearity of their combos and the flexibility of the different situations that I could be put in are generally my favorites. So, like, Mirage is always going to be my favorite OTK deck because it just had so many different combo paths to be able to amount the same thing. So it felt very clean when you played Mirage. So it's just like whether you're going to be doing Honku looping or whether you're just going to hard play a level 3 and then digivolve that into the level 4 and then force the opponent to draw multiple cards while you're in it. You had so many different ways to be able to add cards to the opponent's hand that it made finding the optimal play lines really fun and engaging in terms of what you could do. And even if you couldn't, just doing something was still good enough sometimes. So that's kind of like where I'm coming from as a player. So right now, Rocks and Minerals kind of speaks to me on that, where it really does feel like Mirage 2.0, just a little bit less oppressive because they didn't end their turn into a floodgate. But I guess most of the time with Rocks and Minerals, you're trying to end the game, so there is no need for a floodgate.
Yeah, because like when it came to me with Alphamon, I wasn't playing Alphamon for the fact that he was competitive at the time. I was playing Alphamon because I generally love Alphamon, and it just so happened to be coincidentally the first time I can actually play a full-on Alphamon deck. It just so happened to also be meta.
Sometimes that
That was my
happens.
whole thing.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. Which Alphamon deck do you like right now? Do you like Chronicles? Or do you want to like revisit traditional Alphamon? Or are you thinking like CS Alphamon? I know there's a couple of different ways, so I'm just curious, like, what is your favorite Alphamon deck out of what we currently have?
I mean, as of currently right now, that is actually playable. I would say that it is Chronicles. It's not that I don't care for CS. Like I said, I want to fully deck out and play like a fully Altart themed deck of Alphamon line cards. And to me, see, like the Chronicles is the best way to do it for my playstyle of how I like. But the problem is, it's just unfortunately, I tried playing drawing a blank here, the Chronicles deck a few weeks ago, and it just unfortunately I couldn't do anything with it, with just what the current meta was. Like my deck was always one turn too slow when I was trying to set up for everything I could try to do.
Yeah, Chronicles I think is good. But yes, it is currently just a little bit on the slower side because, BT 23 actually decided to be a power spike set. So like usually there's three ways that I like to define sets. One is this power spiking the game? Two, is this adding like keeping the status quo? Or three, is this underpowered? Most of the time you don't want power spike sets. Because those are the sets that people talk about and have negative connotations with at the end of the day, where it's just like, oh yeah, we hated BT16, not only from a monetary perspective, but because that meta was just not very enjoyable. And that was a power spike set. Technically, BT17 was also kind of a power spike set, but BT16 mostly power spiked it. And then you have like, oh, this is just to keep the status quo set, like BT21. That was, for the most part, just keep the status quo. We're not trying to power spike anything too aggressively, and there's not really going to be that many new meta things coming out because it's just trying to maintain the status quo. And then you have like underperformers, where it's just like, okay, yeah, everything in the set, for the most part, like EX10, was just dead on arrival. I mean, EX10 was trying to be a status quo set, but I think it mostly was dead on arrival from a big competitive standpoint. And I want to preface this by saying, like I said this earlier off stream, casual and competitive are two completely different worlds. So what I'm talking about is mostly from the competitive side of things. And I'll reference like from a casual perspective or from a competitive perspective. So like from a competitive perspective, power spike sets are not what you want. They only do more damage and lead to more things needing to get banned and limited. But as far as like where we're currently at, what decks are you currently playing, Jay Stewart? Like what are your two decks that you pack up and bring to locals?
So the one deck I definitely still do bring and play is going to be the Chronicles deck. I know it's not meta or anything, but it's like if I want to play, like if I'm able to play casually and have a good time, like if I know the game's going to be back and forth, I'm going to try to whip out the Alphamon deck because, like I say, as Chronicles is always like the turns a bit slower, and to me, I do think that my opponent is able to out the Chronicles if they are playing correctly. But the other deck that I've been trying to bring has been Omnimon. Not CS Omnimon, just Omnimon, kind of around what was that? Like the BT17 Omnimon, but with like the newer cards like the Nokia, the new
Yeah,
Omnimon
so
from
just
that.
Nokia Omnimon.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, because funny enough, Nokia Omnimon is one deck that I find myself going back to. I'm still fiddling around with it to find like a good ratio of cards and like what base I like better. Because like on one hand, with the black base, you have more consistency, but you have like less recovery plays, like less good recovery plays. Whereas the red base, you have more recovery plays, and by recovery plays, I mean like, hey, if I only have this one rookie, am I able to do my thing? Yes or no? The answer with the black base is no, you're not, if you only have just the black rookie in hand. But with the red base, you do. So like there's very obvious pros and cons to both. It's just I don't know what I would prefer better. And I'm leaning more towards red base just because I like always making sure my cards are going to be doing something. I don't need to have like awkward effects to keep track of, like because the black stuff will put it on top, and then now you'll know what your top cards are. But if your top cards aren't good, then you're just going to be drawing into blanks. So like that's the trade-off. But I think like both versions of Omnimon are really good, and that's one of the decks that I bring to locals, as well as what's another deck that I was bringing to locals quite a lot? I was bringing Adventures a lot. I play a lot of decks, so like I was bringing Adventures, I was bringing Imperial, I was bringing, well, I just built Magnetic to try to play Magnetic, and then I was still honestly bringing Mirage. Like some decks just feel so pure. So
Yeah,
those are kind of what I was packing up and bringing.
Yeah, and there's two other decks I would like to try to bring. I do kind of want to try to bring Belfamon X Antibody. I'm just missing some of those promo store tournament
The
rookies and
Foscos?
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there, I also want to try to play the new Black War from the EX10 Sinister Order, but to me, it's like I kind of saw a player playing it, and I kind of realized how much I need the Yuki based on how they were playing the game.
Oh, you 100% need the Yuki. And then for Black War, the only unfortunate thing about Black War is he doesn't have good top end cards, like outside of Black War. So like every other Greymon that you could play is like subpar at best. And your best play is like just sometimes getting up into the Metal Greymon and then ace baiting the opponent. But like after that, like the big problem with the deck is you don't have the damage output to close games fast enough. So the opponent could just very easily make a recovery play and then just either not care about your Black War or figure out a way to bypass it. So like it puts Black War in a really awkward position where he's good for like a single turn, and then everything else like outside of that one turn is kind of just meh at best. So yeah, like That's a deck that just needs a good level 6. Like a good support level 6. But yeah, so I think there's still a lot of really fun and reasonable things to play in Digimon. That's kind of what I've been trying to shift my content to try to highlight, because meta slaves and meta like deck profiles are all over the place, but you don't see a lot of off meta stuff. And like, I get it, I'm gonna be sacrificing views for the off meta stuff, um, because obviously, like, oh, here's the 16th Hoodie Loop deck profile on YouTube. Like, yep, it's Hoodiemon. There's 3 different ways to play the deck. Which one is he gonna be playing? Like, I don't know. I don't find the meta stuff to be very exciting, and trying to find different ways in different decks is more exciting to me, because that's the stuff that's not explored as much or as often. And I feel like that's the biggest shame, is because we only have one way to play Digimon, it really de-incentivizes even the thought of exploring lower powered decks. And it's very obvious to know what's a good deck and what's just okay. And I feel like when Digimon is playing its just okay casual decks, that's when Digimon is at its best, not being a meta slave. Because being a meta slave means that there's going to be very minimal to no interactions. It's going to be a high-powered game, ending usually turn 3 or 4, and nobody's going to be having fun except the person doing their combo or winning the game. So, like, I don't know. It felt... Being a meta slave feels very demoralizing, and that's the thing that I had to come to terms with, was how do I want to approach playing Digimon as a game? And I'm not going to be giving up on the meta, obviously, especially since I still like criticize the direction of the game and certain cards that they print and all that stuff, because I want every aspect of the game to be enjoyable, not just the casual one. So
yeah, because I didn't even really have a problem with metas at all earlier, because I'm trying to think. I think it was like about BT15 when we still had Numemon kicking around and everything. I was still enjoying that format, although some people didn't like Numemon. I was trying to play Numemon then as well, but... Or no, I actually wasn't playing Numemon. I was actually playing Mirage. I was debating if I should play Numemon or Mirage, but I chose Mirage, and I didn't do too well with that tournament. But, like, I didn't mind that format at all, but, like, I think my biggest gripe with this current format is and I said it last week, or last episode too, is your opponent just gets to a certain point where it just, honestly, just feels like there's no way for you to make a comeback like it was in older formats.
yeah, I think like the big thing with like BT15/16 Numemon format was the fact that games just didn't magically end, and there were interactions going on between the players. So like that's the big distinction on like what people actually remember and what actually went on. Is just like, oh, Magnamon X was so disgusting. He was, yes, but he wasn't OTKing you. He wasn't killing you out of nowhere. And we did have tools to start being able to handle him, which is exactly what Numemon was doing. And because Numemon was the best deck and he had answers, but he was also answering the number 1 deck, like, there was, at least like in BT15 more specifically, there was a lot more checks and balances in terms of the meta, but games just didn't magically end very often. Especially since, like, removal was a little bit less when it comes to like just digivolving to level 6, or like we had good enough resilience to where like, oh yeah, my Numemon died, but I could still ace you because it replaced itself with something. So like there was a lot of like good healthy interactions back then that a lot of people seem to be underestimating for where current high power competitive Digimon actually is. It's like turn 2 Jesmon, it does its thing. What are you reasonably going to be doing? Nothing. Turn 3 Hoodie looping OTK, what are you reasonably going to be doing? Probably nothing. Like, you were probably setting up just as much as they were, and it's just a race on who was able to do their thing before the other person. But that's why I want to talk about and highlight some other decks, because Digimon didn't always used to be like this, and Digimon isn't always like this. It's literally just the high-level competitive decks. Like, one of the decks that I've been playing around with and having a lot of fun with is Aegis-Dramon. It is an OTK deck, but it doesn't always OTK. And it's just a very fun, casual deck. It can still do well. People seem to forget about it. But is it the end-all, be-all? No. Can my opponent respond to it, and try to play out of it? Yes. And that's what good Digimon is like, it's checks and balances. Like, am I able to interact with the opponent, or how am I going to have to play around what they're trying to do more than just, I hope my deck goes faster than theirs? So, but good to hear that there's just a lot of fun stuff and the types of decks that you tend to enjoy, as well as mine. Yeah. Oh, and the protections. Like, yeah. Floodgates, protections. Like, the game's just crazy. But it's still fun, and we still love Digimon. Which is why, like, so, to kind of talk to some of my haters for a second, because I know I have them, and I know they're out there, and I know they listen. I don't know if they listen this far, though. This might shock you, like Digimon. I'm not quitting the game just because I decide to be critical. You could like something and be critical on it, but that doesn't mean you don't like it. I know, novel concept here. So, I'm not going anywhere. And hopefully I can get my 5K special out soon so I could, like, give everyone a good proper update. So, I think that's pretty much all I have. Do you have any last final words, Jay Stewart?
No, I think I kind of summed it up with like some of my favorite decks I've played. I know some of them are controversial, but
I don't necessarily think they're that bad of takes.
well, the time periods of probably when they might have been out, especially the Alphamon. I mean, to me, I would argue that Werguru was worse than Alphamon, but that's a personal opinion.
I loved Werguru, though. He was so fun. He was like my introductory to OTKs. Because, like,
Yeah,
what was I playing before that? I was playing Imperial. Yeah, I was playing Imperial before that. And then I was
yeah, 'cause
playing
one of
Blue
the
Hybrids before that. And then I was playing Rookie Rush before that. So, yeah, literally, Melga was my first blue OTK deck. And it started me down a very dark path.
yeah, so like to me, my very first deck was Chaos Galamon from BT5. I want to say it was like that was my first actual deck that I played in. I know it wasn't meta competitive, but I was actually doing fine with it. The next deck I played after that was BT6 Black Base Royal Knights. That was with the Gekumon, the Alphamon, and Craniumon from BT3, I think it was.
Yeah, it was either BT3 or BT4.
Yeah, and BT7 was
No, it was
that.
BT3.
Yeah, in BT7 I played Ancient Greymon. BT8, that's when I kind of shifted to do as much Alphamon as I could. And then BT9 was, well, BT8 was actually technically as much Alphamon as I could, but also doing the Black War. And BT9 was Alphamon, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. No, it's always wild to look and see how a game has changed and evolved over time. Cause you could actually like spot when ginormous shifts have happened. And that's always the fun part, is like seeing those shifts and looking back on them. But I know not everyone's played the game as long as we have. Some people are a little bit fresher into it, depending on when their starting point was. But that might be why I'm so cynical sometimes, or critical, is because I've played in greener pastures. I've seen the game at both its good and its bad. So I would at least like to hope that I could identify either situation. But I think that is a good place to call it then. So I hope everyone enjoyed this episode of the podcast, and we hope to see you in the next one. Later.